Make it plain.
Make it plain.
M.I.P.
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy to be here on the show with a very special guest. She's a senior advisor for strategic planning in the Biden campaign. Prior to that, she literally ran the war room during the impeachment process. If I were Donald Trump, I think I'd be scared of her. She goes from impeachment to the campaign. This woman could be very dangerous to me. That's what I'd say if I were Trump. He may be saying that.
He'd be right. He'd be right.
He'd be right. And he may be saying that. We'll ask her. Ashley Etienne is with us. Ashley, good to see you again. How's everything going? How are you and the family faring in the pandemic?
Good to see you again, too. We're doing well. You know, it's good to be blessed, be alive. I can say that I've had friends that have contracted the virus and none of them have lost their lives. So that's a blessing. But, you know, we're ready to get out of, as I was saying to you, we're ready to get out of these houses. You know, this is a clear sign of incompetency, a lack of leadership, and a total disregard for the health and safety of this country on the part of this president. And it really infuriates me. And I'm like, I'm over the Zooms. I want to start hugging my family again. I want my kids to go to school, which we all do. I mean, this is a shared experience. Yeah. That we're all going through for the first time in American history at any election. This is a shared experience, you know, and I think it couldn't be, again, more clear what's at stake in this next election and really, again, what failed leadership looks like.
So is that it? It is a shared experience. Are people getting that just like in the Clinton years? What was it saying in the campaigns? It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
Is it that it this time, except it's the pandemic? Stupid. That's it. Do you feel that's really what
in terms of what we're saying to people?
Well, not only what you're saying, but what the public is feeling, what they're even saying to you.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, and that's reflected in the conversations that we're having. That's reflected in the polling. I mean, it's reflected in the news. It's reflected in people's faces. But the reality is it all makes sense because that's what's central. It's central to us getting the economy back moving again, central to us getting back to some semblance of normalcy. You know, it's central to our health and well-being. So the coronavirus is central to all of these things. None of these things will work until we tackle this issue, which again, you know, I mean, I was just telling someone the other day, you know, someone who's a little on the fence, like, I don't know, like why you would know. After 4 years of this, I'm not sure. But my point to him is that, you know, we don't call him the vice president for nothing. He was part of one of the most successful administrations in our nation's history, and definitely within my lifetime. And they were tested, and they got that 3 a.m. call and responded very differently. You remember Ebola, 4 people died in total. We're at 218,000. You know, leadership is you get together with the states, you form a 51 plus state strategy to make sure that we're working as one cohesive unit as the United States, right? You don't turn your back on the states and tell them to fend for themselves, you know, and you don't, you know, shrug your shoulders and say it is what it is in the face of American suffering. You know, 218,000, that's more than all the people we've lost in all the wars fought combined. And there's no end in sight. And I think that's what's scary. So that's how I've been doing. And that's the message. That's the message.
Well, do people also, I mean, I think it's easy for people to get to, and I know this has been messaging too, that you have COVID, and then you have an administration with the Supreme Court nominee that is an existential threat to healthcare itself. You put those two together, and knowing everybody voted with the ACA as a priority in 2018, which the Republicans still didn't get that. They didn't figure that out. But that's what people are concerned about when they vote. And they say that was the message, ACA. So now you have COVID and the ACA under existential threat. It's kind of tough that both of those overlap.
Yeah, and I feel like you've forgotten to include one, and that is ahead of all of that is a president who's willing to lie to the American people. about the deadliness of the virus. We cannot forget that. I mean, I just think when we, again, not only does this election boil down to leadership, but it also boils down to character. Because my daughter said it poignantly the other day. She said, "Listen, Donald Trump's the bad guy, and the bad guy should never be the president of the United States." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're 100% right. To have someone who would intentionally lie to you, perpetuate, exacerbate a healthcare crisis, and then go to court and try to undermine the ACA, it's really the combination of it all, to your point, is really kind of sinister, if you ask me. Yeah. I mean, it's scary. And that's what we're faced with. That's what's on the ballot in November. Mm-hmm. That's what the world could look like. And people all continue to say to me, well, he won't. I mean, what we've seen in the past 4 years is that with every passing day, this president gets more reckless. There are kids still trapped in cages celebrating their birthday, literally. So who knows what this president is capable of? I mean, it's a scary thing.
And it's unimaginable what he'd be capable of in a second term if he acted like a fool. We're finished. So when we talk about some of the key demographics too, unfortunately, it was white women that went a little over the top for him in 2016. Then they came back to the Democrats mostly in 2018. Will that hold? Because it seems to me there are two demographics here that we got to keep with us. It's them, white women, educated, not educated, whatever. And then there's this targeting of Black men through disinformation and Ice Cube and all that. I'll come back to that second. But first, white women. Will they hold? Are they holding? Are they gonna be there for us in a couple of weeks?
I mean, I believe so. I feel like there's a lot of energy when Senator Harris came on as a vice presidential pick among women. So there's a lot of enthusiasm among women. I think the one thing that women, to give you the honest to God 100% truth here, are the more superior species, right, of the two.
I don't disagree.
No objections there, right?
Okay.
So I say all this to say that what we didn't know 4 years ago is really clear to us now.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Like 4 years ago, you may have decided, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to run a risk. There's something about her I don't really like. What it is. It's very clear. 218,000 people have lost their lives with no end in sight. 30 million Americans are unemployed, without jobs. 40% of Black-owned businesses are going under. 1 in 4 women-owned businesses are going under. Our kids are not in school. We're trying to work while homeschooling, while being a mom, a housekeeper, whatever have you. So it's very clear to us now. And I think that, again, because we're brilliant in our evaluation as women, I think there's no doubt in my mind they're going to turn out in big numbers.
And that brilliance clearly does not exclude another existential threat with his Supreme Court nominee, and that's Roe. I mean, so you go health, pandemic, health, ACA, health, Roe. I mean, that is essential.
Yeah, I mean, let's not. Yeah, it doesn't even stop at Roe. You got VRA, you got voting rights, you got DACA, you got a lot that's on the line when you're talking about the Supreme Court, and a lot that's hanging in the balance. But it also really drives and makes this point that we have to turn out in high numbers, that elections actually matter up and down the ballot. This is what's clear also in the SCOTUS fight. So we need folks to turn out and vote early. We need them to vote up and down the ticket, that all of these races matter. If we had the Senate, this would be we'd be in a different set of circumstances if we had the majority in the Senate. So I would say that there's states that are in play, Georgia and others, where we need folks to turn out in big numbers. And that's really the focus now, which is for the campaign, is to not only make the case, on the issues the issues that matter most to folks, but in the places where it matters most to folks. So we're double downing in the battleground states where it matters, and making sure we're making the case there that, listen, you gotta, not only are we turning out for the top of the ticket, but up and down the ticket, mayor, everybody's on the ballot. So anyway, so I say that to say, no, you're right. I mean, there's a lot at stake, and a lot at stake for women in this next election. There's a lot that hangs in the balance for a lot of folks on a lot of different fronts.
So clearly,
but the solution is the voting, right? I mean, people have to come, short and long term.
Hey peeps, it's your girl, Danielle Moody, host of Woke AF Daily. Every weekday, I'm sounding the alarm and keeping you woke to all the pure evil that is going on in our country. Check me out now at patreon.com/wokeaf. Get 5 new shows every week for just $5 a month. Get woke and stay woke as fuck.
You've expressed that women are the superior species. I've agreed. We'll stipulate that. So I can imagine what your response is going to be to my next question. What about these Black men? Some are being used, most are being targeted for disinformation. I have probably, worn out my welcome on a lot of Twitter feeds because there's this argument made Black men should vote for Trump or Black men should not vote at all. What are your thoughts about that? What are the campaign's thoughts? What are you all doing to try to keep Black men on board?
So, I think to use another word that I've already used is sinister. The targeting of disinformation to anyone, is sinister. I don't like the feel of, feels like cheating, which is what it is, right? And I think there's nothing more offensive than to feed people lies. So anyway, I'm personally offended by it. I will say this, we have put an incredible amount of focus on engaging Black men through our principles and the entirety of the campaign. Vice President Biden had a Black Economic Summit in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago where he engaged small Black-owned businesses. Several of them were owned by Black men. Senator Harris did the same in Michigan. She's led a couple, more than 2 or 3 shop talks. We have a program called Shop Talks where it creates a safe space for brothers to talk about issues that they're facing that are unique to their experiences in life and why they think that the Biden-Harris ticket will address those and meet those needs. So anyway, so she's done several of those events in Michigan. She met with Black small business owners and met in a barbershop and engaged Black men. And so up and down the spectrum, we've been having a lot of conversations engaging Black men. I think, I can give you a campaign answer, but I'd rather give you a personal answer, which is that, we're in a tough spot as a nation, and we're being, as people, squeezed from all different ends, and folks are feeling the pressure. All of us are, and especially Black men. This administration has been particularly cruel to Black men. Black male unemployment is more than doubled under the current administration. Not only has this president since day one, since Barack Obama came onto the scene, tried to make him an illegitimate president, to demean him, to call into question his citizenship. I mean, is there anything more offensive than that? To the Central Park Five, to stoking racial animus, like all of that are we experiencing and our Black men experiencing. So, I was married to one and my dad is one. I love Black men dearly. And, and my heart goes out to them in particular in this campaign, as best as we can in the midst of a lot of noise, is trying desperately to communicate our love, admiration, and appreciation for need to partner with Black men, but it's getting lost. A lot of it's getting lost. And, and the disinformation is high. There's a lot of forces behind that. There's a lot of money behind it. But the reality is our expressions are sincere. There's no doubt about that. I wouldn't be at the table if they weren't. I mean, I am encouraged by, Senator Harris being at the table as well, because she sees us. She's FUBU for us, by us, right? Like all of that. So anyway, so I say that to say, sorry, that was a long answer, but I say all that to say that, that we have been doing really great work listening and engaging with Black men. I think it's getting lost in all the noise. We regret and are offended by the fact that people would serve up disinformation and try to, do what we saw happen in 16 successfully. Same thing happened in 16. Remember with Super Predator, right? Facebook came out and like all this money being hyper targeted to Black people. I mean, literally, these are the same tactics that were used. I've been in politics for a while, only 20 years, but like I remember them putting flyers on people's cars outside of the church on Sunday, telling people to vote the wrong. I mean, it's all part of that effort to keep us from voting, and we can't allow that to happen.
Well, you've described it as being kind of lost in the noise. Is there strategy to ramp up what the campaign is doing to reach out to Black men? And I'm aware of all things you said, and they're all great things. But now Ice Cube has taken over the news cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's causing confusion. Have you all thought about, anything to do in the next couple of weeks to kind of counter some of this confusion?
Yeah, I mean, part of what we're doing and we're working on now as we speak is having both of our principals speak directly to the community. So we're working on that now, and that's going to come out in multiple different forms. So that's as much as I can give you, but that's the idea, is to us to speak directly to the community in an unfiltered way. Okay. And, and then what we have are validators and, mayors from all the major cities and local officials and pastors and community leaders that are all validating for the campaign. And we have to hope that some of that penetrates through. I mean, the reality is this, and I said this to you earlier, that we're trying to do something that no other national campaign has done. The way that normal campaigns work, right? You can get a lot of traction and a lot of amplification, right? Like, because you're hitting every city. It's a big rally, big news. The rappers and the artists are out doing rallies. We're in churches every Sunday. Like, none of that is happening. This is a whole new world in terms of campaigning that nobody has ever dealt with. And I think folks need to think about these when we talk about strategies and what's penetrating through that lens, is that we're at 99% digital campaign. We're not a ground campaign, right? A ground, Black folks, we like to be touched and feel, I want to see you in my community. We can't, none of that can happen because of COVID has challenged all of that. So anyway, so I say that to say that like there's a lot of competing factors, but no doubt, I mean, there's been, the great conversations, again, a lot of events, great conversations that we've held as a campaign, and we'll continue to do that. And in the coming days, we're going to speak directly to the community about these issues.
Battlegrounds.
Yes.
Give us your analysis of some of them, where you kind of see at this hour the path to victory, which battlegrounds the path to victory may go through. Is it the traditional ones everybody's been talking about up to this point, or are you seeing some other avenues, and how confident are you feeling about some of these battlegrounds?
Well, I'm gonna just tell you, I mean, they're all battlegrounds to me. I mean, like we have to, I mean, you get my point. Like we have to turn up and turn out in big numbers all over the country. But the ones that, and to your point, the ones that are most critical, we're looking at Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. So that's the universe of states that are, are getting a lot of attention and we're most focused on.
Is the campaign, are you anticipating what the trick, so to speak, is going to be November 3rd? I mean, we know they've got Trump and Putin have something up their sleeve.
Yeah.
How creative has your imagination been to perhaps participate in advance what they might do?
Incredibly creative.
Okay.
There's probably like, a dozen different scenarios, that one could think through. But I can't give you any more than that, than to say that people are preparing for it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be foolish not to. The president made very clear in the last debate that he was going to do everything in his power. I mean, that's why he was impeached. If we go back to impeachment, I mean, he said it plainly on video, and on tape, that he was going to try to cheat the election. So yeah, people are preparing for these scenarios. But let me just tell you, this is why we are going around the country, and I'm spending hours and hours of doing radio and talking to folks, because we have to tell people to go out and vote early. People now all over the country in all these states are voting early. And the reality is like, it has to be decisive on the 3rd. Decisive, clear on the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So we need folks to come out and vote in big numbers before that point. So yeah, I mean, because the reality is he's going to attempt some shenanigans, and we have to be prepared. You have to be prepared with resources. You got to be prepared with manpower, and that's activity where focused activity and energy, and as well as to your point, you have to be incredibly strategic, and again, just prepare for anything.
As a lead staffer, lastly on the impeachment, I think it did. What do you think? I mean, the impeachment helped to inform the public, even though he wasn't removed. It still served a very important purpose, so people could kind of see, wait a minute, what's going on here? Something isn't right. And I think that got through to a lot of people.
No, I think it was incredibly successful. I was just watching an old videotape of Mr. Cummings, one of my former bosses, and it was a press conference. And, and he made this point in the press conference that he was talking about Mueller in particular. The Mueller report is the benefit of the report was that it started to create and build this narrative about the president. So it's all part of this building block and developing and creating this whole picture of who and what we're dealing with. Then he went on to say things like, this is not about hating the president. This is about loving American democracy, and just giving me chills all over again. But his point is that it started to build the picture. So Mueller was a big part of that picture. Impeachment was more of that picture in terms of what this president is capable of. Who would have ever thought the president of the United States would admit to trying to cheat the election? And be so brash about it. I mean, and then no one's saying anything about it. Like, it's like, I'm living in an alternate universe. I'm like, is anyone else hearing this clearly? The president of the United States is saying that he's going to nullify your vote. Yeah. Your vote, that's what's incredible about it. So nevertheless, it was incredible. It was definitely an important moment to further play out and roll and make set that picture and that narrative. But I think also what made very clear, and this is how you got the Lincoln Project and all this other kind of energy, is where everybody stands in this dynamic. You know what I mean? We were smoking people out like, okay, where are you standing? Are you on the side of red, white, and blue in American democracy, or are you not? Okay, and if you're not, you're getting rolled over. You know what I mean? We're coming for you. And so I think it was good for all of those reasons. It made clear what this president is capable of. And literally, I think it reinforced, ideally, this level of patriotism.
Absolutely. Folks, Ashley Etienne has been our guest. She's a senior advisor for strategic planning. As I said, she was also the lead general in the impeachment process. And she's right, folks. We have got to vote. If you're listening to this, when it's finished, do what you have to do to vote early. Do not wait until November 3rd.
That's right.
We need to close this out early, wherever you may be, and vote up and down the ballot. And of course, Ashley, we want people to also to visit iwillvote.com.
That's right.
Correct. You alluded to it, but just to get you on the record, your thoughts as a Black woman having a Black woman for the first time on the ticket. And you talked about your daughter earlier. I mean, just what?
Yeah. No, it's I actually haven't found the right words to describe it yet, because it is that impactful, that meaningful. And to really see that level of progress, it could get you, it makes me get all emotional. It really does. I was just saying how my daughter, she got, when I was growing up, you couldn't find a Black doll. you had to have some money.
Right.
We had to have somebody like sew it out of crochet for us, like literally to have a little black doll. And so my daughter got sent from one of my former White House colleagues, the Barbie election series. And, and it's got every shade of girl in the box now, which is, incredibly, my daughter gets it and she immediately opens it up and I was like, which one's your favorite? And she picks out the black Barbie, who happens to be like a chocolate sister. You know what I mean? Like chocolate. And she's president of the United States. So for me, what it's about, my daughter being able to pick up the black Barbie and be proud and excited to have one and to see her be the most powerful figure in the country, I think is incredible. And, the senator is about to realize that, she's about to be number 2 most powerful woman in the world. And to have my daughter grow up to be held by Barack Obama and then to see the VP be Kamala Harris sworn in is just going to be incredible. And to say I was there both times.
That's right.
I mean, blessings on blessings on blessings. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Ashley Etienne with us, folks. Thanks for joining us, Ashley.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
luck. And we're going to see this home, okay?
That's right. See you soon.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe. And wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.